everyone. We're doing a course today on biofield abundance, and we wanted to introduce you to this concept of working with our energy field, or what Dan and I are terming the biofield, and how to work with that to attract more abundance into our lives. And we're offering this free webinar to help show you guys about a course that we're offering in March on this topic, and we're super excited about this. It's a new course. And I also want to introduce Dan Spinner. Dan Spinner is absolutely amazing. I love Dan. He is an interesting contrast because he's done multi-million-dollar projects, run large corporations, and yet has a huge heart. And it's so wonderful to work with him. And he has a lot to teach about the Biofield, a lot to teach about abundance, and I'm thrilled and honored to work with Dan on this project, and I appreciate you all joining. And let's hear from Dan.
Well, thank you, Jennifer. I'm sure I don't deserve all those accolades, but I'll try to receive them, which is part of abundance work. You know, one of the things that Jennifer and I decided in designing this course, and even talking about today's 1-hour session, is that most of us have all been through some real tough times, and some of us are still going through them, particularly in today's economy. And if you're an energy healer, which many of you are, energy healers seem to really struggle sometimes with issues of abundance and scarcity. So I just want you to know as we start that both Jennifer and I are very familiar with poverty and struggling and trying to make ends meet. And we've both become a little more abundant than that over the years, thank goodness, but through our own efforts and our own work, and so can you. And as we've reflected on, well, how do we make those changes, and how do we find a better flow for financial support or general abundance, we've been learning about things like the biofield and its relationship to abundance. Now, we define abundance as not just money. Of course, it includes money. But think about abundance as resources of any kind: relationships, advisors, friends in your life, family, community, nature. We invite you to define abundance broadly, just very broadly. And beyond that, the question we have for you today is, are you struggling now? Right? Are you struggling? Are you really having trouble making ends meet? Is it worse than it was before? Is it better? Is it easy for you to make a living as an energy healer? Most don't. So they have to have other work, etc. You know, what's going on for you? And if you have some responses, and then you can just put them in chat, and we'll open up to Q&A later. But that's our first question to you. How is your life relative to abundance? Is it great? Is it horrible? Is it maybe? On a scale of 1 to 10, if 10 is incredible and 1 is awful, you know, what would you say? So just put a vote in there from chat. And yes, you're welcome to introduce yourself on chat and where you're from. We always appreciate that. I guess the thing I want to start off, aside from that question with, is to say that the way I finally learned abundance, and it took a while, was to really understand and feel my way into the natural abundance of the planet and the world itself. And it seems to be only humans that suffer this thing called scarcity. Now, I mean, you could argue that animals can, or landscapes can too, especially with climate change. But I'm saying that generally, when you feel yourself into nature, she is more than abundant. She's always growing, she's always evolving, she's always adjusting. And when I have learned over the years to tap into my relationship with nature, it's really taught me how to become more abundant. And that's the framing I want to give the work on the biofield. If you're not familiar with the term the biofield, it's a term that was identified by the National Institutes of Health in the early 1990s, and it's a scientific term for our energy fields. And they're called many things: auras, light bodies. There's many different terms for energy fields, as you would know if you're in the business. That happens to be the current scientific term under which a lot of their research is done. And the science, by the way, on the biofield is amazing. Past decade has just exploded. There's over 7,000 to 9,000 peer-reviewed articles published on subtle energies and the and aspects of the biofield, and more coming. And even universities opening up focus points and centers and departments focused on this kind of work. So that's really a big change in the past 20, 30 years. Only going to enhance your work as energy healers. I'm going to leave it there and turn over to Jennifer for her opening comments.
Oh, great. So I'm really excited because I don't know how many of you are familiar with this, but I used to have a credit card charged up to the max. I felt buried under debt. Is anyone else feeling kind of buried under debt, or just, let's see, raise of hands or put it in the chat? How many people, yeah, I got some yeses in the chats. People are saying they feel, I got some 3s and some 5s as far as their financial abundance. And how many people feel stressed on a daily basis about their money situation? Just raise your hand. Let me just get an idea of how many people here on this call feel stressed. Anyone feeling stressed daily, thinking about it on a daily basis? Oops. So I'm getting some people raising hands, and I am very familiar with this because when you have a credit card charged up to $35,000 of debt and you're trying to make payments on this credit card and your interest is more than you can pay, and you just feel like you'll never get ahead, and people are saying stress, stress, stress. What does that do to your energy, right? That daily stress, it made me feel like this, made me feel very contracted and unable to serve, right? Anyone else feel that way? You just feel this kind of tightness and contraction in your energy in your body? Let's see a show of hands. So one of the things that I'm really excited about in our course is that we're going to cover some of the things that are keeping people feeling very stressed and unable to function with their financial situation. And the first thing that we want to cover is money myths. And this is near and dear to my heart because I realized that I was broke all the time because I was operating from a lot of these myths. And I'll give you one. The idea that money is evil. How do you guys all feel about money? Is it evil? Are you neutral? Is it that if you're doing spiritual healing, you're not supposed to have money? All of these type of thoughts were circulating in my head, that I need to take a vow of poverty to serve people, that money is somehow, corporate people are greedy, or people with a lot of money are greedy. And I was struggling with this, and it really seeped its way into my life. So that was one of the things. The other myth that I was suffering from is this. So people here are saying, I think money is really exciting. I love it. Well, that's awesome. More stress from outside influence expectations. More now recently about the debt. Okay, so that's great. So yeah, so that's one myth I was struggling from. The other idea is this idea that debt is a tool, that debt can somehow help. Does anyone else feel that way, that debt is a tool, or that you like having debt? Or I didn't realize like how much debt was affecting my biofield, that being in debt was making me feel contracted and small. How many people here have debt? So go ahead and put that in the chat. And we're hearing things that money can be problematic. I'm just trying to get an idea where everyone's at here. So we have a lot of people who have debt. Great. Okay. So I was of the impression that somehow debt served me, that having debt was a big factor. It was a lot of it too was growing up with scarcity. So one of the things that I had to overcome was growing up with a lot of the scarcity consciousness. Anyone here have scarcity that they grew up with? So yeah, we have a lot of scarcity. So these are some of the topics that we're going to be covering in our free course and our course in March. Is that, how do you get out of debt? If you feel like you just can't even pay down the interest on your credit card, how in the world do you get out of debt? How do you get over these scarcity stories that are keeping you completely broke? How do you, this was a hard one for me, How do you live below your means without feeling like you're suffering? I know I had a hard time with that. I felt like if I do a budget and I live below my means and I try to suffer by being frugal, that wasn't really, I didn't really resonate with that. So these are some of the things that we want to cover in this idea of some of the money myths. I was, Dan, do you have any comments about that?
Yeah, I want people to notice that when Jennifer was talking about her struggles with debt and money is evil, she took her arms and she showed that she was contracting, right? And what we're beginning to understand about the biofield is that's exactly what we do when we're in scarcity or fear, right? The biofield literally seems to contract in, along with our muscles and our sphincters and our eyes and our jaws and everything else. And of course, it's how we hold tension and stress. And so, as energy healers, most of you, how bad that is for the human body to hold that stress and to get stressed again and again in a repeated way or to hold it chronically, however it happens for you. And you probably have some place in your body where you hold most of your stress. So we know that worries about money, worries about abundance, feeling a lack of shrinks the biofield. That's the bad news. The good news is you can learn to open your biofield when you're dealing with abundance and scarcity issues and money, and it's not so bad. It can actually get pretty good. So maybe just for a moment, let's just try a little experiment here. Take your arms and wrap them around your chest and your shoulders, just hard, tight, tight. Curse if you want to. It's just like, all right, and that no, with me, just very slowly, at your own, but at speed you like, just open, just open, and breathe, and know when you're opening that you're opening your biofield, you're opening your energy field. Know that that's actually what you're doing. You're not just opening your arms. So sometimes simple movements, and we will teach 6 or 7 simple, deceptively simple movements in the class, and we'll practice them together. I'll be standing up, moving around. Maybe Jennifer will be some of the time. And the reason these body movements are crucial is you can't think your way to abundance. You can feel your way to abundance. Very different statements. And of course, the best way to feel is by trusting our bodies. Our bodies have an incredible wisdom. You know that if you're in the healing business. And our bodies are actually extraordinarily abundant. You each have 70 trillion cells, and they're all cooperating with one another and they're all in harmony. Your bodies are amazing examples of abundance, whether it's blood flow stream, neurological patterns. If you look at your own human body, or anybody's human body, it's unbelievable. So while we may be having scarcity or struggles in our mind's eye, our body knows something different, or we wouldn't be alive and functioning, even if we're having an illness for a while or we're healthy. So we turn to the wisdom of our body by movements, by muscle memory, and we kind of push to the background our monkey mind and our mind chatter because that's not going to get us anywhere. When you think about thoughts about scarcity in the economy, oh my God, is there going to be a recession? What about inflation? Look at the costs of groceries, etc. Geez, it's hard to make a living. Any scarcity thought, it exists in the mind and it usually repeats in that circular pattern. So we're not going to get very far trying to somehow manipulate or change our minds. But your body and nature can come together in ways that start to let you know consciously, not accidentally, consistently as a practice, how to feel abundance flowing through you. And that's part of what we're going to explore together in our March course.
Now, I wanted to add to that. One of the things that got me out of the scarcity mindset is I had a lot of resistance to traditional financial advice. For example, the idea of doing a budget, I felt allergic to a budget, doing a spreadsheet or trying to like consolidate my life into a series of numbers. But I knew I had to figure out some way to get my spending under what I made. So one of the exercises that I still do today that really inspired me to get control of my money was I called a Biofield bank statement exercise. And how you do this is grab a bank statement where all your expenses come through. And instead of trying to put it all into a spreadsheet and do a budget, what I did was I would open up my Biofield, open up my energy, and feel into each line of what I was spending. And how does this feel? So if I saw this large payment going out for something that it just felt too much, my body would tell me. That's what Dan says, we trust the body. And this helped me naturally get my expenses in a line where I spent less than what I made. It created this balance that my body knew, but my mind wasn't on board with. And so by doing this, what I call a Biofield bank statement exercise, it helped me naturally cut down my expenses to the point where I had enough left over at the end of every month to pay off my debt and to start saving money. So in some ways, I realized how simple money can be. It's not that complicated, but I had to let my body lead with it. I still do that to this day with my own finances and also with Quantum Touch's finances. It's just, how did these things feel? And I can say it was much better than doing a spreadsheet on budgeting. And I felt overly constrained by that. But we can allow our bodies and our biofield to make budgeting decisions. And I feel like we naturally want to seek alignment. We naturally want to spend less than we earn because that is abundance, where there's more money coming in than going out. So I don't know if Danny had a comment on that, but one of my biggest tools.
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. If our bodies are human tuning forks, and I believe they are, and you will know this too if you're in the healing business, then we're simply using our intuition. I think that intuition is the language of the biofield. And you may or may not be highly intuitive. You probably are, but you might restrict it to certain areas of your life, like your healing practice or bringing up children or whatever it might be. But in fact, you can apply your intuition to anything, right? Because it's not just thoughts. It can produce thoughts, give you suggestions and guidance on how you act or decisions you make. But what Jennifer's describing, which I thought was wonderful when I first heard about it, is if you're consciously in your energy field, your biofield, when you're regarding large or small financial decisions, your body reacts. Your body, your intuitive sense, which I think is largely body sense and intuition are very wrapped together, the felt sense of intuition. And you can learn to practice that. If you're in touch with your body, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you're not yet, you can practice it. Your body will react. While your mind's popcorning or doing whatever it usually does around money or abundance, you kind of ignore it, push to the back burner and say, well, how am I feeling? And feeling is a combination, of course, of your kinesthetic sense, but also the emotions that come with that. So we might sort of wrap intuition as a combination of kinesthetic, felt sense, and emotions. And you can get very practiced at this, and you may already be in certain areas of your life. And what we're simply saying is you can learn to apply it to any area of abundance in your life. Now, some of us, most of us typically have some area of our life that's abundant. So we might flow and be in high flow when we're listening or playing music, right? But we might not be in high flow in relationships or vice versa. So think about the different areas in your life. Think about, where does it work easily? Where does things just happen? They're abundant, they're natural, no sweat. And where do you really struggle? You'll typically have a spectrum, right? And some of you might be money, or it might be relationships, or it might be, fears about what's happening in the world, et cetera, et cetera. Pay attention to the areas where you naturally are in high flow, where you naturally are being abundant, whether you call it that or not, because you can unpack those and say, well, what is my state of being when I'm feeling really good and things are happening really easily? And you can actually learn to apply the natural areas in your own life to the unnatural or not yet practiced areas of your own life, and bringing that way of being. Abundance is a way of being. It's not just a specific set of skills, which we're going to teach you in the March course, and we'll give you a few more ideas today about it. It certainly is that, but it's also a way of being in the world. And if you tie that in back to the biofield, the more contracted you are in certain areas or certain discussions or certain moments, certain people, certain decisions, those are not that's not the right time to make an important decision. Think about it. You're angry with a relative. He or she has ticked you off. Something's happened. Maybe you have a history, but you need to make some decision about going to a wedding or a funeral or a dinner. And if you're in the moment of being angry and contracted and upset and you make that decision, it might not be the best decision for that relationship. Same is true around money, around abundance, around anything in your life. We want to be centered and calm and relaxed when we have to make important decisions. So that becomes part of this. So we'll be talking about centering, right? As well as getting in touch with your body.
So speaking on that, I'm seeing here some of the comments, and I wanted to address some of these. So this was an interesting one that we also want to cover in our course. Is one person said, I have too much debt in my life and not believing in myself to make money. So if you have debt, there's two ways to handle it. Either you lower, your expenses by using what I call the Biofield bank statement exercise. You can get those expenses down naturally, or you raise your income. And self-worth is one of the things that I really had to look at, because do I deserve to be out of debt? Do I deserve to be relaxed? Do I deserve to earn money? Do I deserve to have clients or a good business? Like these things really came up. And the bottom line that I realized is that I was spending a lot of energy trying to prove my worth rather than provide value. So I've seen this sometimes with people who have clients, that they're worried that they're not good enough to have a client, or they're worried that they're not good enough to do a good job and make more money at work, or they're worried that they're not good enough to even manage money. And I think this taking that out of the equation altogether, instead of worrying like, am I pretty enough? Am I good enough? Am I worthy? To say that we're actually here to serve, to provide value, rather than prove that we're worthy or not worthy, completely taking the ego out of it. And from that perspective, coming from that place of providing value, I felt like the finances started to kind of shift, because I no longer did things to prove my worth to other people, like buying certain clothes or certain shoes or having a certain car, or I wasn't using money to bring up my self-worth. Instead, I started to view money as a way that I can provide value to the world as a tool. I don't know, Dan, if you'd like to speak into that.
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. This is a really important point that Jennifer's making. We call it net worth versus self-worth. Okay. If your whole focus, and it often is in our culture, is what's my net worth? If you haven't calculated net worth, it's the sum of all your assets minus your liabilities, and what do you got left? In our culture, unfortunately, in our Western culture, we're so defined by how successful are you, which is usually net worth of some kind. And how terrible is that? What, you mean the gal or the guy that's a gardener and doesn't make much money but loves plants and grows incredible plants has no self-worth? If he or she is measuring themselves by our usual standards, maybe not. Maybe they earn not much an hour, right? But look at their garden, look at their flowers, look at what they're creating in the world. And it's unfortunate that we, in our culture, tend to define our self-worth by the opinions of others. Well, if I have these things that Jennifer's talking about, people will think more of me. I'll look like I know what I'm doing, and look like I'm a good person. And it's all nonsense. It's BS. Okay? Your self-worth is your own sense of self-love and appreciation. It's not driven. It should not be driven by external opinions of others on you. Yes, we all want to be liked and seen and recognized. Nothing wrong with that. But if we use that sort of want to please personality as a way to define ourselves, we're in big trouble. If people aren't really thinking about you or me, they're thinking about themselves. And so you're just projecting all this. I call it the imagined opinions of others. They're not even thinking about you, but you think they are. Right? And then you try to manipulate or control how they see you or how they, by, as Jennifer said, your car, your look, your feeling, your house, your stuff. That's a sad, endless, going nowhere strategy because there's never enough. I know some very wealthy people in this world, and they're some of the most miserable people I know because there's never enough. Right? Another car, another house, another boyfriend or girlfriend. It's never enough. If you go the other way and you start paying attention to your personal internal self-worth, you're changing the myth. And then you're allowing true abundance into your life, not I got to be abundant or I got to have a lot of money or things to prove that I'm worthy. Trust me, I spent a bunch of years trying to do exactly what I'm saying. Didn't go very well. Yeah, I had some success and some stuff and some money, but I had very little self-worth. So the relationship between true abundance and self-esteem is critical, something we're going to explore in some detail together.
Well, I wanted to speak into this one of the chat questions. I manifest money in my life, but at the last moment, and always just enough to scrape through. Behind having abundance of money is the fear of being seen for me. I wanted to speak into this because I can relate. I've had a lot of fear of being seen, and I think really what that is again is if we focus on serving versus what people think of us, I think that actually helps mitigate that fear of being seen because our focus is how can we help other people rather than our own fears about, what are people thinking about me? I feel like Dan would love to speak into that too, but I wanted to address that.
Yeah, it's a great comment in chat. Thank you, Sarah, for your honesty and putting it there. Look, we all suffer variations of these themes. It's not something that somehow, neither, as I said, neither Jennifer and I were born with silver spoons in our mouth. And even the people that are born with silver spoons are often miserable and unhappy, or the subsequent generations are as well. So this is a disease in our culture, right? The scarcity disease, right? The less than, right? It ties into the assumption that we're all separate from one another and we're all competing. That's not the whole truth. Yes, some species in nature compete for air or space or food or whatever it may be, but nature is dominated by collaboration, wonderful collaboration and teamwork, even across species. And the science is proving this enormously in the past 10, 20 years. Human beings sometimes can be really good at collaboration, but we have a long way to go. So you need to look at the state of the world regarding peace or war. And I think that it all ties together. To the extent that you think you're separate from others, from life itself, from everything around you, then you are in a competitive, oh my God, I got to struggle world climbing up that hill, Sisyphus pushing up the rock. What if it's wrong? What if it's actually not a competitive universe? And I know that's the frame a lot of scientists give it and a lot of business people give it. Well, what if that's not true? What if it's actually an abundant, loving, cooperative, collaborative universe? What if the myth of competition is destroying us and we're destroying the planet as a result of that and one another? What if there's a fundamental issue here? This is why I like the work in the biofield, because I am experiencing and learning and believing all the above, that the biofield is what connects us. I have a biofield, Jennifer has a biofield, all of you here have a biofield. Together, we've created a shared biofield. We may or may not be aware of it, but you certainly would be aware of that kind of connection if you're an energy healer and you have patients and clients. shared biofield is the ultimate because it's conscious and we're aware of it and we're in a dance together because we're all in it together, is what I'm saying. And are you going to submit to you at the biofield of the earth is something we're all a part of. A very famous scientist friend of mine says one simple phrase about the biofield. She says, and she's a well-known scientist, we do not end at our skin. And if that's true, and the ancients, by the way, the biofield is not a new concept. You know this if you've studied ancient writings and have different traditions you've been learning your own modalities from, et cetera, and building upon all those for thousands of years. There have been discussions of biofield, light bodies, energy fields, auras, Chinese, Egyptian. There's all kinds of traditions, and they all talk about, in some form or another, subtle energy. It's not new. It's just new for us to understand it in this context. So think about it this way. If we're not separate, then shouldn't we be learning how our connections are with ourselves, with others, right? With our family at the energetic level, right? With our neighbors, with our colleagues, with our clients. And in that learning, we begin to see the flow patterns in the energy and the exchange rather than the story of competition and comparison. When we're doing the thing Jennifer was just talking about the opinions of others, we're comparing ourselves to everybody. Maybe people in the same business, people in the same street. We're comparing, which is another endless game. When we stop comparing and we start connecting, you can't do both. You're comparing, you're separating. When you're connecting, you're not comparing, it starts to change your experience of yourself and reality itself. And in that way, we can start to feel the flows of the universe and the planet and our own bodies and how human beings are really meant to connect. And you know this, if you make the very rare happy family not dysfunctional, yes, they have their challenges, but somehow they're just love bunnies. How do they do that? Okay, how do they do that? Somehow their shared biofield by the leadership of parents and maybe grandparents are doing what we're talking about by different terms. And if you enter a company, you've had this experience. You enter one company and it doesn't feel good. And you enter another facility, maybe doing the same kind of business, and it feels great. What the heck is that? That's the shared biofield. How intentional is it? How awkward is it? How uncomfortable is it? What is the culture, they often call it? So this great mystery of the biofield and the relationship to abundance, we're just beginning to figure it out. I wanted to look at somebody's comment here. And this is a very important comment. Same in the first part. Where I'm at right now, is from Jessica, thank you, is that I don't want to serve the greater. I just want to take care of my family and cultivate the new earth ways over time through raising my family without all the pressure to constantly give and serve outside my home. That's a perfectly reasonable comment from Jessica. Serving your family is serving life. Serving the new earth in ways is serving. There's 1,000 ways. There's a million ways to serve. You don't have to necessarily be serving what we call the higher good, but you're doing that by serving even yourself. So take the serving idea and don't misunderstand it as somehow have to be grand and have 1 million followers or whatever you might define as serving the greater good. Taking care of your family, giving them a good experience and a good meal and a moment of deep love or a lifetime of deep love is serving. And this is not, to me, not serving yourself. You have to serve yourself. It goes back to self-awareness, self-love, self-appreciation. Those of us in the energy field business are terrible at self-care and terrible at serving ourselves. And as a result, we get exhausted and depleted, anything but abundant. And we can be brilliant healers or brilliant at whatever energy work is, but if we're not serving ourselves in meaningful ways, we're not creating that health and that field and that resonance that we get to offer others, and including our family.
Yeah, so I wanted to go over some of the topics we'll be covering in our course. And then I wanted to go back to this topic of what has been termed overcare in our community, where you're so into serving other people that you're just exhausted and depleted. And how can we manage that? I find that sometimes really hard. But anyways, so in our course coming up in March, the topics we're going to cover are some of the money myths that I feel like are keeping a lot of people broke. Some of the ones that we've struggled with, both Dan and I. Like for example, here's one that I've really struggled with. Do what you love and the money will come. Well, I did what I loved and the money never came. And I felt like I was waiting for God to give me money. I'm serving the world. Where's the money? And so that's one of the things we want to cover on that one. The second is how do you get out of this victim mentality? That was one of the things that was keeping me broke, was I felt like a victim to the world, to the rising prices, to rising real estate. And so how do we actually overcome this feeling that we're being a martyr, which is what we were just talking about? How do we not be a martyr for our cause, or a martyr for our family, if it's not about a bigger global vision, just even for our family? Then Dan will be teaching steps on biofield awareness. Like, how do you become more aware of working with this biofield? How can you actually feel what energy is going out into the world? And then moving upon that, we'll talk about steps to conscious manifesting. So using your biofield to help manifest. We also cover this topic in our course on manifesting miracles. So we have a course in quantum touch where we teach people how to work with the universal energy to manifest. So it's a different take on the law of attraction. And then I'll be covering topics on practical ways to create financial peace that incorporate the biofield. And then finally, we're going to cover biofield momentum, which is really exciting because when you take steps in one direction, there's ways that the universe meets you. And for me, that's a very exciting part about it, because once you start shifting your energy, the universe matches you. And it's a really exciting part about both business and life and abundance. So I don't know if Dan, you wanted to speak into that, but
Yeah, Jennifer, I'll build
some
on it.
topics.
To go back to what Jennifer was talking about with respect to overcaring, that's poor boundaries. Okay, we don't know what our boundaries are, and we deplete ourselves in an act of martyrdom. And by the way, I think I got my PhD in martyrdom, so I did it for years, right? And it wasn't so good for me, and I'm sure for others. One of the things that biofield awareness helps us do is establish boundaries, literal boundaries, energetic boundaries. And of course, the good news about that is if you're very aware of your energy boundaries, you don't overcare, because you're also picking up the other person's boundaries and their energy field, and you're meeting them at the boundary. The most harmonious relationship, whether it's a personal friendship or a client healer relationship, is to meet them at the boundaries. And when we overcare, we get right in their face and into their space, and we have no sense of boundaries. And of course, we get exhausted, and goodness knows what we're really doing with them or for them. So boundaries become a very important part of this study, to understand boundaries. And boundaries, of course, apply financially, they apply emotionally, apply many different levels of reality, of all of which the biofield contains. So biofield awareness is a study in part of creating harmony through healthy boundaries. I think it's really important for us to think about that. And remember this, you can't think your way into abundance. You can't think your way into self-love. You can't think yourself into boundaries. You have to feel it. It has to be a whole being, whole body experience. So it takes practice like anything else. Just like you've been practicing and learning whatever your profession is over the years and hopefully getting better and better about it. Abundance is a practice. I said earlier, it's a state of being that has some skills that help, but you still got to kind of try it. And yes, you muck it up and it didn't work here and it didn't work there. When it comes to manifesting, and I will be teaching you 5 simple steps to conscious manifesting. And that's not magic. It's not God sending you $1 million, right? Or blessing you because you're a good person. It's not like that, right? It's cooperating with our co-creative, abundant universe and planet to let things flow in a way that serve you and serve others. In a way, it's surrendering into abundance that already exists all around you. It's not a going to get pushed achieve struggle, which is the message we're trying to counter for you in this study. Jennifer, I wonder if we wouldn't like to open it up live for Q&A now, if you're ready.
Questions? Yes,
Yeah.
I think, yeah, definitely.
Just put your electronic hand up if you have a question, because we can't see you all on our gallery screen. And if you're not sure how to do that, just under reactions. So just think about it. If you have a question, if you want to put it in chat, you're not comfortable talking in the group, that's fine. But if you do have a question, you can raise your hand and you can unmute yourself when we recognize you. Maria.
Hi. Okay. So I guess my question is kind of similar to the comment that I put in the chat, but I've been working on this for a while and I think I've made good headway, but I think the one thing that confuses me the most is like I think I really resonated with like do what you want and the money will flow. And that's what I've been trying to do. Like I am trying to aim for like the life that I really want and leave behind the things that don't actually serve me. And so I've been living off my savings for the last year. And so working on feeling abundant and grateful that I'm able to like sort of like live, but then not seeing any money come in and being confused as to, yeah, where it is that I could be going wrong or being blocked. Yeah, I guess that's my
Jennifer,
question.
you want to respond?
Yeah, I am guilty as charged. I believe that if I did what I love, the money would just automatically come. And so I guess like let me get more details. What are you doing right now to earn money?
Well, I'm looking for work. I've been looking
Oh,
for work.
okay.
Yeah, I've been looking for work for quite some time. So I'm not really on like a start my own business journey or anything. It's more yeah, trying to manifest a job that is in alignment with what I truly want to do. Instead of just what I was doing before, which is like, oh, I should just get like a high paying job that has like, you know, benefits and whatever, and then I'll be secure and happy forever, which is wasn't working. I was not happy. So yeah, anyway. So yeah,
Thank you,
trying.
Maria. And do you want to tell us how you feel about what would align for you? Values. I call it a values aligned job. Give us a flavor or hint at that.
Okay, well, I'm an ecologist. So what aligns with me is working with wildlife, and that's what I did for quite some time. But I was always told and always told myself that those jobs where you get to work with wildlife, like, are few and far between, and they're not going to support you financially. So I started aiming for, full-time permanent jobs that had higher pay and more quote unquote stability, which took me out of the field. And I started doing work that I didn't enjoy at all. So now I left that behind. I'm trying to aim for the work that lights me up, which is like as in the field and like as indirect with wildlife as possible.
Well, thank you for that. And this is a good example. And if you don't mind, Jennifer, I'll just riff on that for a bit. So the good news, Maria, is that there's more and more jobs working with wildlife than ever before.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're stuck with the story others gave you that there aren't and they're low paying, you're holding that reality. Okay. And you're making that true by believing that story. And maybe it was true before, maybe not. But I'm just telling you right now, I've seen it, and I do a lot of work in the environmental field. There's hundreds of jobs opening up working for wildlife in many amazing ways. Are some low paying? Yes. Clean out the cages or whatever, refugee centers or refuge centers. Are some high paying? Yes, more and more are. But if you hold that thought that there's nothing for you in the wildlife field because somebody told you that or convinced you of that, or maybe you had that experience, then you're creating that reality. And I'm inviting you, and we'll show you more in the course about this, how to create a different reality, how to change belief systems that no longer serve you, because they do affect reality. Here's the simple thing I would say about this way of manifesting. It's not that God's going to give you a job or the goddess or whatever you believe in. that you're going to open up your own energy and your own intuition to feel your way into the field you really want to be in. And I would even advise you to go so far as to connect with the wildlife themselves and ask them how you can best serve them, and ask them to help you find the right career step in that. So I just want to give you some hints about countering traditional thinking when we're not traditional people.
That's so cool. I would love to connect with, like, especially want to work with marine mammals. I'll connect with an orca. That's so cool. Thank you.
We'd be happy to take other questions or comments.
I had a similar experience to that because I started off my career writing software in a cubicle all day, 8 hours a day. I hated it. It paid well, but I hated it. And then I got into energy healing. And of course, first thing my mom says, are you actually going to go back and get a real job? So, I mean,
there it is.
there it is, right? Because energy healing is not a real job, but sitting in a cubicle all day it's our conditioning that are told that we can only make money through certain ways. And
think about this while we wait and see if there's other comments or questions. We're heading from the old economy to the new economy. I assure you, it's actually really happening. It may not look like it because of the mass media covers the old economy, right, and all the troubles in our societies right now. But there are many, many new things being created and invented that are rewarding people abundantly for doing work that they love. It's not because God is waving his magic wand. It's because the economy is starting to shift, because many of us feel like Maria feels, where's my calling? Where do I want to be? And how can I earn a living doing that? It's not happening overnight, right? Sometimes we have to do part-time things or volunteer things to let it happen, et cetera, but it is happening. There's a whole new economy, a new earth emerging. If you can see it and allow yourself to look past the mass thought forms and memes that dominate our media culture. Other comments or questions? Well, Jessica has an interesting chat here I wanted to pick up on. Thank you, Jessica. She says, I wonder why being in lack comes more easily than being in abundance, but how much abundance and money mindset work I have done. And I think it's for the reason I just said. It's a cultural mindset. It's a cultural set of memes about abundance and money and earning and self-worth and all things we've been talking about. So we're swimming upstream. If you actually want to be abundant, including in your abundance, earning a living, doing what you love, that's not our culture. Our culture is shut up and get in the cubicle. And now you got a real job. And that's deeply in our, all the way back from the Protestant work ethic culture, right? And I had it too, right? And so understand you're swimming upstream against mass thought form and the culture, and that's really challenging. But you want to develop the skills to not be caught in those beliefs, because obviously they no longer serve you. Maybe they never did. Nancy Ann, did you have a comment or a question?
Yes, I want to introduce a parallel idea before I make my comment. And it has to do with when I worked in healthcare those 40 years under all the pressures, and it wasn't aligned with my values, but I was learning so much. I had to stay to learn the systems. That was my personal job. But what I learned was I did a lot of playing with my relationship to money. And what I realized was I started asking myself a question when I was going to invest myself in an extra, we'll just say, call it a project. It could be anything. I started asking myself the question, is this a good investment of my time and energy? And resources wasn't on there at that time because I had a good paying job. But what I realized was when I had creative activities happening outside of the mundane, pressured job, it was funding my energy so that I had more energy to spend time not only on that, but to be more present in this challenging job that was my part of my soul work. And so what I started to notice was that when I had surprised money fall into my lap, it was when I had engaged in a creative project that was totally aligned with my energetic core and passions. So I was playing in both worlds at the same time. I was fortunate to have had a job so that I was funded to do that. And so I know a lot of people are in that situation, but may not see this double play game that, what our inner world is guiding us to do these amazing things. We wonder what it has to do with, let's say, a paying job. But everything that I did along the way that looked like it was separate from me in my life, all those dots have connected. And what I found was I'm actually primarily an energy being who responds to nature and to needs and to relationships. But I was tuned to do it in a community. And so my workplace was my family. I couldn't leave. Eventually it ended up in a health crisis. But the healing through that crisis put me in touch with those energy gifts in a deeper way so that I could begin to align with people who are looking for them. So now I want to come to the comment for today. And so what I have noticed post-pandemic, where I am in Portland, Oregon, there is an increasing number of people that are really committed to doing better self-care. And they know it comes through the body, it comes through the energy work, but it isn't out there present and loud enough for them to know where to go, who to go to, and how the doorway that gets them to the person who's a match for them. So those of us who are doing energy work, but surreptitiously, like when I go to the dog park or on the street, I meet somebody, and in the moment I have an incredible contribution to make, doesn't make it public enough. And what I'm finding is that passion has grown so strong, I can no longer hold it down. It's bursting through me, and I end up saying things that I already knew. I've been reading some of the stuff I wrote back then, starting from 2000, and it was amazing stuff. But the people weren't around me who could use it. They're around me now. So now is the time to find out what kind of foundation I lay that lets me be seen so people can actually find me. So it's a stepwise journey that is very mindful of time and energy, because that's why people want this other. They're burnt out from that, good paying job. And so when these practices we do, for most people, they don't want to know the technical thing behind this magical energy work. They want to know what they're going to get from it. So when we can address that the energy work is actually going to energize them to do something that's closer to what they actually want to do, now they have a motivation. And so most people who are doing energy and somatic work are so, attached to how magical their work is, they don't think to put it in practical everyday terms. What will people walk away with? And so there's
Nancy Ann, I'm going to stop you. That's wonderful.
Yeah,
and
that's
listen to what Nancy Ann's saying. She's telling you in her experience that the zeitgeist is shifting.
yes.
The zeitgeist being the general cultural phenomena. And it is. I said there's a new earth coming and a new economy coming. There are more and more people stumbling their way into self-care. And I think that's how we learn as humans. We stumble in, right? And they're sharing it with one another, they're sharing it with others, and they're helping their families. So we're all on this journey together, trying to figure out, there's no owner's manual for being a human being, right? So we're having to stumble and figure it out together. Think of it this way. If we're all on this journey together, and I guarantee you we are, then we can learn from one another. So in our class, in our course, we're not just going to be showing you stuff we figured out. We're going to be asking for your wisdom and your insights, just like Nancy Ann's or some of the wisdom and honesty shown in the chat. Each one of you has incredible wisdom and learning, maybe even beyond what you know. And our job is to help pull it out and help you remember it and help you live with it and help you share it. So the wisdom of the crowd is unbelievable when you know how to access it. And guess what? It's another form of abundance.
Yeah, I just
Jennifer,
wanted to speak.
yeah, final comments, Jennifer?
Yeah, I think that the reason why I'm so excited about this topic is because I've been doing energy healing for over 20 years. I got involved with quantum touch in 2002. And one of my frustrations was something that Nancy actually reminded me of is that I've been doing all this energy, cultivating the ball of chi, using it for my own self-healing. And I was frustrated with the fact that I couldn't apply what I was learning in energy healing to money. It just seemed like there was a disconnect between the two, and it's a point of frustration because I know how to do everything with energy. So that's why I'm so excited about this course, because I think Dan and I have discovered some things that help us, like how do we apply this amazing energy to our money situation. And there's always been a disconnect for me up until a few years ago where I think I finally got it. And that's why I'm so excited. And I just wanted to add that in because I'm not sure if other people share my frustration with that, but that was where this originated from. Was I just got frustrated with
it was
energy, money.
It was surely your idea, Jennifer, when you approached me about it. Morgan, can you put in the chat, please, the link for the course?
Yep.
Upcoming. Thank you. There it is. And take a look at it, folks. It's right there if it interests you. Of course, we can, we will email you and remind you. It comes down to this. Do we want to live in a loving, cooperative, friendly universe or not? And if our answer is yes, then we need to figure out how to start with ourselves, right? Because we can change our circumstances beyond imagining. I'm sure you've all done it in different ways in your own lives. Let's keep doing it together. And so we're tending to think of this course not as what we're going to teach you, but what we're going to learn together to carry on this very important work for ourselves and for others. I want to thank you for attending today. Everybody's busy. For those who aren't able to be here today, there is a recording. You'll get the recording as well if you want to review anything. And of course, those of you that know Jennifer can ask any questions or have any comments you want. Thank you so much, folks. We're going to wrap up in another minute. Any final comments or questions from someone before we wrap up? All right, so last comment from me is just start to imagine your life as going to its next level of abundance. It's not magic. It's the power of intentionality within the biofield. There's a scientific basis to it, power of intentionality. And of course, the least it does is shut down the mind chatter that you can't be abundant in certain ways and starts to put you towards the positive. Just start to imagine that. And the more you imagine that, the more we care for ourselves, for one another, and for the planet. Thank you so much, folks. Hope to see you in March. It'd be great.
Thank you.
Take care.